Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Divasesha Sunyavadi Pasatya Deshitarane. Om Agena Jaminandasya Jana Jana Salakaya Chaksis Meditanjena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Manabhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Sayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sa Pandantikam. Vansakalpa Tarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pabhinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I wanted to play the nourishment, the food that the devotees in the early days would eat and taste and relish. That's so much formed our consciousness in those days, and unavoidably it's in our consciousness even in these days, and it has to do with Shikshastakam. Yeah, this is what brought us up without the buzz. Oh, you stop! Wait, stop for a second. Could you stop, please? Everyone, close your eyes and think of Prabhupada, a photograph or your image of Srila Prabhupada, and offer your obeisances to that image of Prabhupada. And now, while Prabhupada is singing and then speaking, please keep this image in your mind. Now begin.
Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed his disciples to write books on the science of Krishna consciousness, a task which those who follow him have continued to carry out down to the present day. The elaboration are impressed in most solemnness, exacting and consistent due to the unbreakable system of discipleship practice of any religious culture in the world. Yet, Lord Chaitanya in his youth, widely renowned as a scholar, himself left us only 8 verses called Sikkhaso, flowing to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years together. Thus the fire of conditioned life of repeated birth and death is extinguished. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the light of benediction more. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it helps to have a taste of the full nectar for which we are always anxious. Second verse. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction upon living beings, and therefore you have hundreds and millions of men, like Krishna, Govinda, etc. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies, and there is no hard and fast rule for chanting these holy names. O my Lord, we have so kindly made approach to you easy by your holy name, but unfortunate as I have no attraction for them. 3. One can chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking himself lower than the straw in sleep, more tolerant than the tree, devoid of all sense of false deceit, and ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly.
This was one of the first recordings that was distributed to the devotees, I think in 1968. Before this, and there were, I think, 2 others that came out along with this on something peculiar called a tape recorder. And the first recording was even more peculiar. It was called a record. It was this big thing about this big. Have any of you ever seen a record? There were small ones, this size ones, and this size ones. Today, we're going to speak on the 3rd verse of the Shikshastakam, as Prabhupada pronounced it in Bengali. I once, there's a Bengali scholar who stays connected to the Dwarka temple, who I consult in regard to Bengali verses. And he told me that there's a Bengali verse that someone wrote. It's not Shastra. And the verse said, I was desiring to become a Gaudiya Vaishnava until I read the verse, Trinadapi Sunichena Torodapi Sisnuna. But we don't agree with him. But in any case, put on the verse. There it is. No. The wrong thing, that's up there now. Yeah, just see how short this verse is. This verse is different. Each verse is composed by Mahaprabhu in a completely different mood, different poetic elements. This verse has, okay, go to the next part. Trinadapi, everyone can say it together with me. Trinadapi sunichena tororiva sihisnuna amanina manadhena kirtaniya sadahari. Very short, just how many words? Just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 words, or perhaps 10. So short. And it has images in it, but it's only 2 images that are in it, and both have to do with plants, trees and plants. But let's discuss the first verse, the first line right now. Trinadapi sunichena. Grass-like. And the conclusion comes right at the end. Oh yes, please turn off your mobile phones or transfer to cow ringtone. Either one, we don't mind. Trinadapi sunichena. Grass-like. Niche mean in Hindi means low, and su means very, basically. So it means very low, like grass. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in their comments on Chikastakam, verse 3, they say that each of these 4 parts or 4 lines, or 2 are in 1 line actually, they have different qualities. They have different qualities, express different qualities that on one side, a devotee who chants offenselessly, because the last verse was speaking about Durdaivam Indri Samihana Raga, that I don't develop a taste because of my offenses, aparad and anartas. And this verse describes the qualities of someone who chants offenselessly. These are naturally blossom forward in a devotee's mind, consciousness, and activities, manifest in their activities, just naturally. And yet, there are also qualities that we try to develop, and in the trying to develop these qualities, we develop humility, basically. And we become purified by the attempt, whatever we can do in this regard, and also becoming humble. And we'll explain a little more about that in a moment. So what does this mean? Become like grass, lower than grass. Who goes to the university to learn how to become humble, lower than grass? And yet this is the quality of someone, practically speaking, who's on the stage of perfecting his chanting Krishna's names. So there are 4 qualities of someone who chants offenselessly that come out in this verse. And the first one is Trinadapi Sunichena. He is naturally very meek and humble. True humility. True humility doesn't mean that you're always thinking about yourself and how bad you are. That is not humility at all. It is a mental disease. Because who is the center of the thinking? It's always me. I'm like this, and I've done this wrong, I've done that wrong. And I have this bad quality, and no one likes me. That's a mental disease. It's not humility. But rather, humility means when one experiences, sees, is conscious of his negative qualities, but quickly takes shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. His false ego, by chanting Chaito Darpanam Arjanam, it's dissipated, it's dissolved slowly, perhaps, as Chaito Darpanam Arjanam, as the consciousness is cleansed. He starts to actually see himself for what he is. In false ego, our identification is of the body, of the mind, I'm like this, I'm born in this place, I'm this height, I'm male, female, I have this great quality, I have this. But as one chants, those material coverings over the soul, who we really are, they're gradually removed, and one starts to not identify oneself with the gross and subtle bodily upadhyas, identity overlays. And then one feels himself very humble and meek, very naturally. Why? Because not seeing himself through the false ego, he sees himself as a soul, an eternal soul, and ultimately an eternal soul who is serving Krishna. And Krishna is so great. And he sees that how many souls are there in this world? As we mentioned, there's in humans only, there's 7 or 8 billion. And here I am, 1/10,000th the head of a hair in size. And ultimately, I'm insignificant. And everyone in this world, by the grace of ahankara, which is described in the third canto in Kapila Muni's teachings, ahankara is the actual basis of material existence. Ahankara means false identification, false ego, a false sense of self. It's not true. So as that becomes gradually removed, one sees that not only am I a soul, but I'm also tiny and insignificant. And all the things that I was proud of as me, gradually, and this I've seen personally, gradually, they're all removed by age, the aging of the body. And ultimately, all one is left with truly is the fact that I'm Krishna's servant. Why grass is the example. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that grass has a false ego that's in a line with his actual identity. There's grass everywhere. It's insignificant. We step on it. Sometimes it comes up. If we step on it enough, it will die, practically speaking. But grass is insignificant, but it thinks of itself as grass and insignificant. So what he actually is very much in line with his false ego. I mean, the grass, you don't hear grass complaining, why did you step on me? Do you know who I am? You should understand, and I will get you back. He doesn't think like that. No revenge is in the grass. So his false ego, it's not correct. He's a soul, the grass is a soul, but it's in line with his actual identity, insignificant. But what is my excuse? Prabhupada actually said when he was elderly, he said an old man cannot be proud. What did he mean by that? He meant that all the things that we're proud of, that we think are us and are ours. I have this kind of intelligence. I have this kind of strength. When I was young, I could practically speaking run all day long. But as I've aged, I can't even walk very well. What to speak of run? It's inevitable that as we age, all the things that we're proud of, our beautiful hair, especially in some people's case, it's just not there anymore. The strength that goes, the intelligence, the memory. And then, if we don't have a positive understanding of who we are, as we lose one by one, or all at once even, the false things that we thought we had and are, and have our pride in, we become terrified. We become terrified because we identify, this is me. I'm the one who can run. I'm the one who can give a good class. I'm the one who can sing. I'm the one who can do this. I can do that. And as one by one we lose that, our sense of identity, who we are, becomes destroyed. And it's terrifying. It's terrifying. So a devotee, by chanting, he begins to identify with Krishna, Jivera Sarupoi, Krishna Nityadat. This is who I am. And until we actually strongly see that, we can intellectually understand it, until we experience ourselves as not only eternal, but eternal servants of Krishna, we're not going to feel comfortable and secure in our material, subtle, and gross bodies. We feel it's not quite, it's like wearing somebody else's clothes or something. It doesn't quite feel right. It's not quite me. This is the process of self-realization. Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, in his Bhajan Rahasya, or it probably comes from his songs on Chikastakam. He says, one should give up the false identification with the material body made of the 5 material elements. Oops, wrong one. If you desire to engage, please listen carefully. If you desire to engage in chanting Krishna's names and glories, then do everything you can to gain the qualifications necessary to do so. Give up false ego and think of yourself as very lowly and wretched. Wretched means it's heavier than humility even. I can't even look at myself. And that's one of the things that happens as one ages. When I was young, I remember, especially around 16, I'd stand in front of the mirror and now I watch kids do that, and I just think, you don't know what I know. Like this, and now when I look at the mirror, I think, who is that staring back at me? Who's this old man? So if you want to actually, not only theoretically, intellectually, understand you're Krishna's servant and you want to chant properly and glorify him, think of yourself, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur says, as very lowly and wretched, because here I am. I've done so many things that I didn't think anyone was watching, and I've done this and I've done that, and I'm thinking myself so great, and the craziness of my mind is at one moment I'm thinking how terrible I am, and at the next moment I'm criticizing everyone else because they don't understand how wonderful I am. So, and the fact is, I'm insignificant, and in 100 years, probably less, no one will even know that I existed. So why should I think of myself as lowly and wretched and insignificant, more insignificant grasses? Because I am. Bhaktivinoda Thakur continues, practice the virtue, the good quality of tolerance. Just like the trees, give up revenge. And instead of that, try to look after and help other creatures, other living entities, regardless of their body. Do not give distress to any other being in order to maintain your body. Forget your own selfishness. Forget your own selfishness. How? By serving others. And even if you do possess all good qualities, do not try to profit from it by looking for prestige. He says, keep your heart simple. And when someone from New York hears, keep your heart simple, he'll think of a very complicated way to keep his heart simple. And it doesn't work. It's not an intellectual thing. It's something. These instructions are meant to be applied, to be considered carefully, and then the attempt should be made to apply them to our life. Know that, Bhakti Vinod Thakur says, all living beings carry Krishna in their heart. And so you should offer them all respect in all circumstances, not only when you're in a good mood. Cultivate the 4 qualities of humility, which is the first one here, Trinadapi. The second one will be compassion. The third one, respect for others and indifference to worldly honors. And in that mood, chant the holy names of Krishna. Now the last part of what Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, at least in my case, it's the most relevant. Bhaktivinoda cries out the following plea, begging at the Lord's lotus feet. When, oh when, will you make me qualified to chant your holy name? But that's not the end. That's just the beginning of the verse. But so important. The second. Taroriva, tree-like, just like a tree. Sahisnuna, tolerance, patience. Tolerance and patience. And yet there's more. Bhaktivinoda Thakur again says, now to explain the real purport of Taror Api Sahisnuna, more tolerant than a tree. Why? Why a tree? Grass? A tree? Both images, both pictures. Pictures that we can put in our mind, and every time we see grass and every time we see a tree, we can remember these instructions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Why a tree? The tree is considered tolerant because it never neglects to offer its cooling shade and its tasty fruits, even to the woodcutter, the person who's coming to cut it down, he still gives. The devotee of Lord Krishna is kinder even than a tree because he is compassionate to every living entity, whether friend or foe. He desires only their welfare. One who chants offensively is overwhelmed with thoughts of others' well-being. Thus, the second special quality, compassion with no envy, is being described. What's the difference between envy and jealousy? Raise your hand. Yes, but I'll repeat it so you...
In envy, there is a desire to bring the other person down.
You want to harm the other person. You want the bad. You wish them bad. And jealousy.
Jealousy is just that you look at something better in another person and you want to be like
You want that quality or the thing that that person has. So envy, and I've heard Prabhupada say this, and unfortunately I've observed it in myself. So many times I'll say to even a devotee, oh, I'm really sorry to hear that that happened to you. But inside, I'm thinking the opposite. That's very sad. Because as long as we have false ego, and again, false ego is the essence of material existence. And we have false ego because Krishna bule se jeev, anandya bahima. We've turned our back on Krishna. Why? Envy. Why is he the center of existence? One time we had a ceremony in Gopinath Dham in Perth, and I gave a little talk, short talk, and I said, any questions? And one little girl said what everyone else secretly thinks as a question. Why does Krishna have to be the center? And everyone looked at her, but covering up something inside. The devotee of Lord Krishna is kinder than a tree because he is compassionate to every living entity. Whether friend or foe, he desires only their welfare. One who chants offensively is overwhelmed with thoughts of others' well-being, of the good for others. Thus, the second special quality, compassion without envy, is being described here. Torori vasa hisnuna. Such an offenseless chanter thinks, oh Lord, my friends and companions, the people I know and the people I don't know too, they're unfortunate because Harir Nama, Harir Nama, Harir Nama eva kevalam, kalo anasteva, nasteva, nasteva, gatiranyata. In the age of Kali, there is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way than chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name of Lord Hari. Because they neglect this. Let me serve them. Let me help them. The words that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur used was, they're overwhelmed with these thoughts. We see this, saw this in Prabhupada. He didn't sleep. He was writing, he was talking to people. He seemed to be tireless. No matter when he arrived in a place, he never exhibited jet lag even. I see this in some of Prabhupada's followers. They have unlimited energy to serve. I heard Prabhupada even say, he was talking to the devotees in Melbourne in 1975. He said, he was talking about how compassionate they were because they were undergoing so many austerities, giving up their own convenience and pleasures to help others. He said, you're also compassionate. And I remember what he said, that I went, I wanted to disappear because I didn't feel any compassion. But yet, when you actually see someone suffering, it's painful to a devotee. So they neglect the holy names. Let me serve them and help them. And in that mood, the devotee chants, the devotee preaches, the devotees distribute. Okay, everyone close your eyes now. Now, we talked about two qualities. The first one was like grass, sunichina, feeling oneself lower than grass, insignificant, humble and meek, because that's reality. Now, see the picture. an image of that. And to chant offensively, one has to develop this humility and this feeling of insignificant, but yet insignificant servant. So, seeing this image, just consider how much have you assimilated, captured this mood. And if you like, at the end of this manina, this contemplation, this consideration, you can offer a prayer. How much have I assimilated this mood? In fact, just to yourself and Krishna, consider this question. And again, if you like, you can offer a prayer, as Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur did. Now continue. Keep your eyes closed, please. And think of the tree. I'm going to read Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's explanation of this verse and the previous verse too. Although he is very exalted, the one who chants thinks himself lower than the grass on the ground. And like a tree, he tolerates everything in two ways. The tree delivers its fruits, flowers, and whatever else it possesses to anyone and everyone. It tolerates scorching heat and torrents of rain, yet it still gives shelter to others. Although a Vaishnava is the most exalted person, he is free from pride and gives all respect to everyone, knowing everyone to be the resting place of Krishna. How much have I actually assimilated, made myself in harmony with Mahaprabhu's instructions? Consider this and think of the image that Mahaprabhu is placing in our consciousness. Think of the image of a tree who is giving and giving and giving and never even complains. Scorching heat, rain, cold, and still he gives, even to the person who's come to cut him down. Think of the image of the grass, think of the image of the tree. How much have I assimilated this mood? And if you like, you can offer a prayer, as Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur did. Okay. The next part of the verse, there's only 4 parts of this verse. This part, amanina, means without being honored. He's not looking to be honored. He's not looking for prestige. He's serving just because he's a servant of Krishna and ultimately of everyone. One of the aparats that Bhaktivinoda Thakur names, quoting from the Amnaya Sutra, is janaparat, offenses to ordinary people. A spotless heart, free from mundane false prestige. He doesn't want that. Pratishta, labha, puja. He just wants to serve. In these moods, one can chant the holy names. I will read Bhaktivinoda Thakur's something that he said about this. And truly, humility breeds tolerance. Humility makes one tolerant. False ego makes one think, he's done this to me? Doesn't everyone recognize that I'm the center of the universe, of existence? That's false ego. How dare they do this to me? I'll show them. Tolerance. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, if one, by nature, one who tries to be an enjoyer does not realize the reality of his insignificance, nor can he be tolerant. He is not at all inclined to give up his false ego and false prestige. A gross materialist is unwilling, even incapable of acknowledging anyone as even being equal to him. The Vaishnava who experiences ecstasy as he chants the Lord's name, on the other hand, is humbler than a blade of grass and more tolerant than a tree. He's unconcerned, even unwilling to receive respect. But as the next part of the verse will say, but he is eager to offer respect to others. Such an elevated soul alone is worthy of chanting constantly. When these pure souls offer their praise and worship to the Guru and senior Vaishnavas, they do so out of manada. And when they give advice to disciples and sadhakas to chant, they encourage them with words of appreciation. In this case, they exhibit their innate quality of amanina, desiring no respect or praise in return. Next, manadena, giving honor, amanina, not wanting respect, not wanting honor, but rather respecting others, because everyone is the adhistan, the sitting place of Krishna is in every living entity's heart, even a dog. I wanted to read some of Prabhupada's purports to in the 7th canto, Prahlad Maharaj, when he was sent back to school, to the Asura Kula, he was sent back there to be trained because he was taking shelter of what Hiranyakashipu thought was his enemy, the killer of his brother, and that was Lord Vishnu. And Prahlad was worshipping him. So Hiranyakashipu thought this was the most horrendous of offenses. He needs to be his mentality has to be changed. So he sent him back to be educated, and his teachers, Sandanamarka, said, "My dear Prahlad, we wish all good fortune to you. Don't speak lies. Just tell us the truth. The other boys aren't like you, and they don't speak in the deviant way of worshiping Vishnu that you are speaking. Where did you learn these instructions? How has your intelligence been spoiled? Please speak the truth. Oh, best of your family. How is this polluted consciousness, intelligence, how has it been brought about by our enemies? We are all your teachers, and we're very eager to hear about this. Please tell us the truth." Prahlad Maharaj replied, "I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose Maya Shakti, whose external energy, has created the distinction between my friend and my enemy. He's deluded the intelligence of men in this way. Indeed, I'm now actually experiencing, coming out of the words of Sandanamarka, my teachers, what I've previously just heard about." Prabhupada's purport. As servants of the Supreme Lord, all living entities are one. Every living entity is a servant of Krishna. But a Vaishnava, because of his natural humility, addresses every other living entity as Prabhu. A Vaishnava sees other servants of the Lord to be so advanced that he has much to learn from them. Thus he accepts all other devotees of the Lord as Prabhus, masters. Although everyone is a servant of the Lord, one Vaishnava servant, because of humility, sees another servant as his master. Understanding of the master begins from understanding the spiritual master. As long as one adheres to the philosophy of duality, friend, enemy, etc., thinking one person is a friend and another is an enemy, he should be understood to be in the clutches of Maya. Prahlad continues. That was Prabhupada's purport, or from Prabhupada's purport. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead is pleased with the other living entities because of his devotional service, one then becomes a pandit, and he does not make distinctions. A learned person doesn't make distinctions between enemies, friends, and himself. Intelligently, he then thinks, every one of us is an eternal servant of God, and therefore, in that sense, we are not different from one another. From Prabhupada's purport to that verse. Everyone should be friendly for the service of the Lord. So now, with Prabhupada's words, he's not pointing to everyone out there. He's pointing to the devotees, his disciples, his followers. Everyone should be friendly. He's teaching them. He's advising them. Everyone should be friendly for the service of the Lord. Everyone should praise another's service to the Lord and not be proud of his own service. This is the way of Vaishnava thinking. This is the way of Vaikuntha thinking. This is the spiritual world. There may be rivalries and apparent competition between servants in performing their service, but in the Vaikuntha planets, the service of another servant is appreciated, not condemned. This is Vaikuntha competition. There's no question of enmity between servants. Everyone should be allowed to render service to the Lord to the best of his ability, and everyone should appreciate the service of others. Such are the activities of Vaikuntha. Since everyone is a servant, everyone is on the same platform and is allowed to serve the Lord according to his ability. And from Prabhupada's purport to 7512, demons think of everyone as a friend or enemy, but Vaishnavas say that since everyone is a servant of the Lord, everyone is on the same platform. Therefore, a Vaishnava treats other living entities neither as friends nor as enemies, but instead tries to spread Krishna consciousness, teaching everyone that we are all one as servants of the Supreme Lord, but we are uselessly wasting our valuable lives by creating nations, communities, and other groups of friends and enemies. So please close your eyes and think of these, the giving respect to others, and even before that, not requiring or wanting or even willing, truly willing to accept the respect of others. Think of what images come to your mind in this regard. You can think of people who really embody this. You can think of, well, I can think of myself and how it's the opposite for me. So meditate on this. Amani namanadena. How much have I assimilated this mood of respect and service to all? And then if you like, you can offer a prayer as Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur did. If you see any lack in yourself, because the lacks in ourself, they stop us from taking shelter of Krishna and chanting his names in the proper mood, or to speak of continuously. And perhaps we even note that we don't want to pray in this way. What do you see of yourself when you examine yourself? No one knows me better than me in that sense, other than Krishna. I've heard it said that when people criticize me, they don't really know how bad it is. Okay, please open your eyes. I wanted to tell you a little pastime of Prabhupada's, that in Melbourne in 1974, Tusta Krishna and Jagtrini Mataji were alone in Prabhupada's room with Srila Prabhupada, and he had just come from his after lunch nap. And he was in a particular mood because Prabhupada had many different moods. And he walked into the room where we were sitting, and he sat down, and he was talking about a letter that he had received. And he said, they write me these letters. Dear Srila Prabhupada, please accept my most fallen, insignificant, lowly obeisances. And Prabhupada said, continued with the type of letter he was complaining about. please accept my most humble, fallen, insignificant obeisances. I have this big problem. And then he just said, just see. It took me a while to think about it, what he meant. And then I understood that how could someone who is insignificant, most fallen, have a very big problem? He can only have an insignificant, small, tiny problem because he's insignificant. And then he said, after saying, just see, he said, I wish I could train my disciples personally, but what can I do? Because Krishna gave him a different service in this world, and that was to spread Krishna consciousness everywhere and to act like a general in so many ways. But he saw that there was lack of training, and very much in these moods, that he could give them by his own perfect example. If they were qualified to be with him and take his instructions, which wasn't easy in the sense that he was on fire, continuously serving, continuously fighting the material energy to help the souls. And the things that he was complaining about the materialists and the scientists and the things that they were doing, they weren't so obvious then to some of us. But now we see the anxiety and the havoc and the crumbling of civilization that's occurred. And Prabhupada was like Prahlad in some senses, but he was like Arjuna the warrior in other senses. And he was so thankful to the devotees who were helping him in his mission of compassion, which was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. I wish I could train my disciples personally, but what can I do? And he was surrendered to what Krishna wanted him to do. So what did he do? He trained devotees who were young to help others, help his own disciples, and also he wrote books that are not only meant to be distributed, but to be studied very carefully. And then, excuse me for going back to this, and then the last line is Kirtaniya Sadahari. Having these four qualities, then one will hold on to Krishna as one's only hope, and therefore hold on to the holy names. And therefore, continuously be praying for protection, continuously be praying for shelter, continuously praying to fulfill his true nature of service to Krishna, feeling himself incapable, facing the reality of one's tininess, one's insignificance, and one's inability to overcome the modes of material nature that have so much entrapped me. That much sincerity comes from offenseless chanting. But yet, the attempt is glorious, especially because the attempt to chant in this mood, seeing or hearing what actually the points are being made, when you think about it in an introspective way, you have to come out, I have to come out humble. Krishna is teaching me by sending me all these flies. I'm not allowed to get angry at them and think of them as my enemies, what to speak of. It's a challenge. But life is that. This is the challenge of life, to come up to these standards, to be conscious of when we're not up to these standards. And then That produces humility. That produces humility when we're conscious, when we're introspective. That produces the humility required to chant in a sincere way from the heart, as our Satchidananda Maharaj often says. Okay, please now take out your notebooks and we'll do a directed free writing on which of the images, which of the points most deeply struck you, if any or all, and just write about them. And don't stop, just keep going, let your pen do your thinking, don't get mental about it. Don't think I don't know what to say, just keep writing and writing and writing and see what comes out. It will surprise you, certainly. So do that now, please.